Welcome to Fake Presidents, a real podcast about, well, you know.
Each episode will take a deep dive into a fictional American president from pop culture to see just how much fiction there really is. I'm Eric Buckman, a former political person who would do political stuff, but now does TV stuff.
Very cool. And I'm Ben Oren, a former journalist, sometimes speechwriter, and all-the-time TV producer.
And
today, we you know, it's funny, Eric. We script out this entire podcast like to a T. To a T, the timing, the words. We spend so much time writing the script.
And we still flub the today every time.
We always still flub that part.
We do. In fact, maybe it's because neither of us should say it. Maybe we should let Sean Connery welcome everyone.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah. So how about this?
Let's break out the Ouija board.
Welcome to The Rock.
Welcome to The Rock. The Rock. Oh, man. That's so great. I mean, it was ballsy for The Rock to take the name The Rock after Sean Connery said The Rock so fucking good.
Yeah.
Because he's still the second. The Rock, Dwayne The Rock Johnson is still the second best Rock after Sean Connery saying The Rock.
I guess maybe his WWE career began, maybe it predates the movie a bit. So he's like, wait, I'm the first Rock. It's almost like how the WWE World Wrestling Entertainment used to be the WWF World Wrestling Federation, but there was another WWF, the World Wildlife Fund, so the wrestlers blinked and they changed their name. I'm not saying The Rock should have changed, but I would have understood it if he did.
I still think there's time for The Rock to change his name, though.
Oh, yeah. Well, you know, Rock's...
All together, get rid of Dwayne Johnson also. Come up with something catchier.
If there's one thing Rocks are famous for, it's their ability to change.
Over time. You give him,
Eventually.
5 years. I don't know if anything's going to change. Give him a couple of thousand, maybe $1 million. There's going to be a different Rock.
Oh, yeah. Enough heat and pressure, he might turn into a diamond. Dwayne the Diamond Johnson in the year 1 million.
I like a little Diamond Dwayne. Diamond Dwayne Johnson? Okay, now that's a good name, actually.
Yeah.
I know there's Diamond Dallas Page, but you know what? Diamond Dwayne Johnson. I'm there.
Do you watch Young Rock? Maybe they explain the origin of the nickname in that show, which we should watch because apparently he's the fake president in it.
Wait, no, really?
I think he's running for president. At least he was in the first season. I don't know if he wins or not.
God, of course he wins. He has it in his contract that he never loses.
Well, in the Good Fight, I think like either the last episode or second to last episode, they basically anoint him the future of the Democratic Party, The Rock.
My goodness.
Get off my plane.
Eric, so we're doing The Rock this week.
We're finally doing The Rock. When I first told some friends back in 2020 when we were doing this, the first question is, when are you going to do The Rock?
Really?
Let's just say I had two different friends who The Rock is their absolute 100% most favorite movie.
But to even remember that there's a president in this, and we can only call him the president because I don't believe he has a name at all. In fact, I believe the actor who plays him in this movie, Stanley Anderson?
Yes.
Stanley Anderson.
And he's uncredited.
Which sounds like a fake name. It's uncredited. So that's funny that people were like very excited for us to do The Rock.
Oh, yeah. This guy in his big scene, he's right up there with the fake president from Splash. You know, I call these people the one-scene wonders. You don't even realize there's the fake president in the movie. And all of a sudden, wait a second.
They show up with a monologue.
They get a speech. They get the cameras on just them for long stretches.
The Stanley gets the sides for this, and he's like, oh, yes, I love this scene. I'm going to crush this, and I can't wait to see what else you have for me.
Yeah, these are great sides for the part. Oh, and I'm going to be credited, right? I'll be in the credits?
This is going to be huge for my career.
What?
1996, going to be a big year for Stan And. That's what he called himself. Stan And. This is going to be big for me because The Rock came out in 1996, guys.
It does. It's a big year for him, but it does. It works out. Not only does he get to do the unofficial sequel to this movie, Armageddon, he's the president, but then he also he narrates a documentary about the White House in the early 2000s.
It's weird. He didn't do a documentary about Alcatraz? Morgan Freeman did a documentary about Alcatraz.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was tied into like Shawshank.
You work in documentary type shows. What would you do if, you're doing a show about the White House and get a call from your casting director? It's like, you know how you wanted to get like an ideal narrator, like a fake president?
Have you ever seen The Rock? No, not even a fake president. First, they're like, I heard you're looking for a narrator for this doc you're doing about the White House. I'm like, yeah, what about it? They're like, I have an actor who's very interested in it. And I'm like, oh, really? An actor? Like, not a voiceover actor, like an actor. I know voiceover acting's real acting, guys, but still. And then the agent's like, have you ever seen The Rock? I'm like, 1996's The Rock, directed by Michael Bay? Written by David Weisberg and Douglas Cook and Mark Rosner with story by Weisberg and Cook? Yes, of course. Of course. You mean The Rock produced by the Juggernauts producers, Don Simpson and Jerry Bruckheimer? Of course. Like, what actor are you floating for me, dude? Is it Nick Cage, the star of it? It's like, no, not Nick. You're not telling me it. You're not telling me it's Sean Connery, James Bond. Wants to do the voiceover. He wants to narrate my little documentary about the White House. Ed Harris, the ghost of John Spencer.
John Spencer would have been a good choice.
Yes. John C. McGinley from Scrubs, beloved comedic actor from Scrubs, who's also in The Rock. No, don't tell me it's Anthony Clark, because I'm unsure about him. Boston Common really wasn't my thing. His stand up is like, no, it's not Anthony Clark. And I'm like, thank God. Well, then who is it? I'm running out of
I've gone through all the credits.
Yeah. I've gone through all the credits. I don't know who else to say. They're like, because this little guy, this little actor was uncredited in the movie. Stanley Anderson. And then I'm like about to click and I'm like, no, actually, this is probably the best I could do.
Yeah.
Hired.
You're saying he played the president twice, huh?
Yeah.
That was actually a nice rundown of the cast. There are no small parts in this movie. That's one of the joys of watching this in 2023, is getting to see all these people who were cast in this movie who then went on to basically dominate both the large and small screen in their own right, for the next 20 years.
Yeah, well, we didn't even hit on everybody. Bokeem Woodbine.
Tony Todd. Vanessa Marcil, who was on Las Vegas for a long time.
And 90210, like Claire Forlani, who they tried to make a thing in the 90s. Like, with all their fucking might, Hollywood wanted Claire Forlani to be huge. She was in Mallrats. She met Joe Black. I mean, man, she is terrible in Meet Joe Black.
Okay.
She is not a strong actress.
Well, that was Martin Brest, who, we should point out, he directed the first Beverly Hills Cop for Simpson and Bruckheimer.
Okay.
So in a weird way, as his career was fading through the 90s, he was being replaced by another Simpson Bruckheimer find, Mr. Michael Bay.
Mr. Michael Bay.
Who has yet to do his Scent of a Woman, but I'm sure it's in him.
Yeah, he's done, not like, I don't think that interests him, but he's done movies that sort of are elevated from the regular, like, popcorny fare that he's done. It's very easy to make fun of a Michael Bay movies, especially because, like, he did the Transformers series, which is just like, but like Pain and Gain, which features The Rock, and 13 Hours, which we could argue we would not have done our previous podcast, we would have still done Jack Ryan, but we might not have been talking about John Krasinski as Jack Ryan if Michael Bay didn't give him the shot to pick up a big old gun and gallivant all around and trot all around Afghanistan?
Benghazi
for 13 hours straight with just the camera rolling. I didn't see the movie. I assume that's what it is. It's one shot art film, 13 hours. Yeah, but Michael Bay, he's made a lot of fun movies. Bad Boys is a great movie. Armageddon's fun. I'm going to skip talking about Pearl Harbor and Transformers, but Pain and Gain I enjoyed.
I think this is the first movie where Michael Bay actually recruited actual Marines to help make the action feel more real, which I don't know if that, I don't
worked.
know. Yeah.
All that being said, it's a fun movie. Like I said earlier, written by David Weisberg, Douglas Cook, Mark Rosner, The story was by Weisberg and Cook. They also wrote Double Jeopardy with Morgan Freeman.
Yes.
They wrote another movie called Criminal. I'm sure they spent a lot of time doing punch up on other people's scripts.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So, any more behind the scenes?
No, I think
background.
I think everybody. The beautiful thing about The Rock is that it was a huge freaking blockbuster of a movie. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but it made a shit ton of money in the 90s.
It's like a Criterion selection.
Yeah. It is a perfect popcorn movie.
This is a presidential favor.
Okay, so yeah, let's get to the movie itself.
Yeah, it's a straightforward plot. It's very easy to follow.
Yeah.
Eric. Basically, Ed Harris plays a revered military hero named Hummel. He leads a group of disaffected soldiers. Also, not all disaffected. Some are just straight up mercenaries. They steal essentially a weapon of mass destruction from the United States. They take it to Alcatraz. They're ready to fire that weapon of mass destruction that basically makes your face melt off.
Yeah.
They threaten to fire this poison gas into San Francisco, potentially killing millions of people unless the U.S. government gives them a hefty ransom, which they intend to use both on themselves to live in countries where they won't be extradited, and also to give that money to the families of fallen soldiers who've done missions that have been like off the books. And because Hummel feels that those men and women have been forgotten and neglected by the country.
Yeah, that's Hummel's main thing, is the fact that his own soldiers, as well as other soldiers, have died pretty much anonymously in the name of the country. They did work for America, covert operations overseas. They helped make the smart bombs actually land where they were supposed to land, presumably in Desert Storm. And yet when they die in battle, because they don't want to admit that maybe their smart bombs were not quite as smart as they said they were, they pretend like these soldiers died in a training exercise and not in active duty, which then affects how they're remembered, how their widows and families are treated. And that's what Hummel wants to get justice for.
Yeah, and he's tried to go about it through the correct channels. He's testified in front of Congress.
Yes.
You know, he's played politics. And he sees that doesn't work, so he takes it to the next level. And it turns out that the only people who could stop him are Nick Cage, who plays
Stanley Goodspeed. And when we first meet him, he's presumably an FBI chemical weapons specialist or biohazard specialist, except he spends more time diffusing electronic devices than he does actually dealing with the dangerous chemicals harbored within.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's like a rocket specialist and a biohazard expert.
Yeah, he's a multi-hyphenate when it comes to the FBI. And then they need to secretly break into Alcatraz in order to do this. And they know that there's only one person who has ever broken out of Alcatraz, although it hasn't been widely publicized. But the U.S. government does have that man under lock and key, and that is Sean Connery.
He escaped from one prison just to wind up in another. Because when we first meet him, he has been encaged. Not Nick Caged. Encaged.
He's been Nick Caged. Nick Cage.
Without, basically, in an unconstitutional way. He's never been read his rights. Never had a lawyer. And so when we meet him, he's basically built up decades of resentments, mostly towards John Spencer's FBI character, for imprisoning him, without even so much as a fair trial.
Yes, and Sean Connery's character, his name is John Mason.
John Patrick Mason. I guess to finish the plot is they break in with the help of Michael Biehn and a whole bunch of soldiers. They do successfully sneak in, relatively undetected until they get into the showers, which is, let's be honest, when you're in...
in prison, the most dangerous place.
Yeah, it's where you're most vulnerable. A prison that for some reason has an observation gallery, like a 19th century surgical suite. So I guess a lot of guards up there just watching them shower. Things go bad. Basically, I'll call them the good Marines who go in with Mason and Goodspeed wind up getting killed. And so now it's up to Sean Connery and Nicolas Cage to finish the mission.
There's a ticking clock. Hummel has given a certain amount of time before he'll blow up San Francisco.
And what makes this movie, I think, to me, truly memorable, it's the same reason why I also love a movie from a year later called My Best Friend's Wedding. And that is how they play with the expectations of who are the good guys and bad guys, who are the antagonists and protagonists. And so you do get to a point in the movie where Ed Harris basically, it was all a bluff. He didn't really want to kill innocents. And there's a mutiny. And so within this faction of now mercenary Marines who all want most of them now want their money and want to get to their non-extradition treaty countries, they are angry that Ed Harris does not have the wherewithal to actually launch the VX gas into Candlestick Park. Is it Candlestick Park? Or is it?
We see an overhead shot of Candlestick.
So, Ben, what does any of this have to do with the fake president?
Well, on top of the ticking clock, the big question is, will the president of the United States authorize military action onto Alcatraz? Yeah. Will he allow U.S. warplanes to drop bombs to kill not only the terrorists who are on Alcatraz, but also they have 81 hostages there as well? Will he give up 81 innocent lives to protect the millions of people who live in the greater San Francisco area?
And he does.
He does. I mean, this is when we finally get to see him. He's just like, we're like waiting for president. Yeah. It's like a play. Everybody's talking about the president. He's this dude who's elsewhere. Then finally, 1 hour and 52 minutes into The Rock is when we finally get to meet the president. And he's in the White House, and he's it's very Shakespearean, the way he's standing and thinking deeply. And he's talking to, I assume, might be his chief of staff. There's only one person in the room. And he has his monologue. And this is what he says, Eric.
These past few hours have been the longest, darkest of my life. How does one weigh human life? 1 million civilians against 81 hostages. And in the middle, Frank Hummel. That we have ignored, abandoned, or marginalized a great soldier like Frank Hummel. And that American boys have paid for that neglect and blood is equally real and equally tragic.
He removes his glasses. We don't know whether he's nearsighted or farsighted.
We are at war with terror. Fighting war means casualties. This is the worst call I've ever had to make.
This is the worst call I've ever had to make. At that point, he then picks up the phone and makes an actual call. It's a literal call. Airstrike approved.
Airstrike approved.
And that, everybody, is the president.
He's the moral center of the movie, if I don't want to give away my thoughts too soon.
He's true. He's asking all the big questions. Everything that has been presenting itself throughout the first hour and 52 minutes, in case you missed it, is summed up very succinctly in this little speech.
Some might say it sums it up so well, the scene's not even needed because it's no new information that could not have been handled with John Spencer getting a phone call saying, President authorizes the strike.
Airstrike approved.
Yeah.
By the way, he told me that was the toughest call he ever had to make.
Yeah. In fact, I wrote down some of the things he said.
He was like, "You super yappy, yappy, yappy." And I was like, "Mr. President, clock's a ticking. Gas might be going. People might be choking. Faces melting."
How dare you come into this office and bark at me like some little junkyard dog? I am the President of the United States.
What do we want to talk about first? Go on presidential politics, or more generally zero in on the politics that do come up in this movie?
I think generally talk about the politics that come up in this movie.
Yeah. Got it. Well, because they come up in two ways. One is the fact this is clearly a world where Desert Storm did happen. This is clearly supposed to be the actual 90s politics of America in 1996. I don't know at what point we deviated from George H.W. Bush and Reagan. I mean, there's clearly no Clinton in here, but it's right there. There are reasons for, like, I don't know how grounded in reality it is. You know, the fact that I do know that in real life there were actually more troops on the ground helping those smart bombs to be bombed. I don't think they were dying in large numbers.
No, but in the sense of soldiers being forgotten and neglected by the government.
Yes.
I mean, there's a rich history going back to after World War I.
Oh, yeah.
Being the case.
Well, that said, if you said this movie was originally written in 1981, it was about Vietnam vets. Like, yeah, totally, 100%.
Wait, if this movie came out last year and was written about soldiers dealing with with burn pits,
yeah.
I could see soldiers taking matters into their own hands because the government has been doing nothing to help them and their families with all the health problems that they've been having that's been leading to premature deaths. Like, I would buy it.
That's why if The Rock came out in 2023, you'd have a big cameo from Jon Stewart, speaking on their behalf in Congress.
Yeah.
Yelling
you would start.
at,
I mean, the way Michael Bay loves his movie, he loves with his exposition.
Yeah.
He would have CNN running with an interview with Jon Stewart talking about it, even standing next to the Hummel character, saying that this man's a hero to go up to buck the government, because we're leaving our soldiers behind. I mean, thematically, I think nothing feels dated to me with this movie.
No, in fact, there is that evergreen aspect to the motivations behind Hummel's character, and even the way that Hummel's portrayed. Like, he's very we kind of saw it with Thanos in the Marvel universe. Like, I guess something Marvel's kind of sunk their teeth into. Let's give our bad guys like motivations that you kind of see their side on at times. And then what are some other ways that we see politics seep into here? When Hummel calls into the war room to demand $100 million, he specifically says it needs to come from the Red Sea Trading Company. It's a slush money for illegal arms sales paid by the Pentagon. He knows about it.
Again, he doesn't want to take money from the American people.
Not from the American people. He wants to take it from the people who bought guns under the table from the Pentagon, ostensibly to, I don't know, like an Iran
Contra thing, yeah.
We get politics in why Sean Connery's spy character, he's a British spy, by the way, we should mention. Why is he in jail in the first place? What did he do that was so bad that John Spencer wants him locked up? Well,
something with Kennedy?
Well, that's just it. He used his spy skills to take pictures of some very sensitive documents, like, say, the page 47, the Book of Secrets of this movie. He got access to the President's Book of Secrets. That's from another Nicolas Cage movie with Ed Harris, produced by Bruckheimer. Check it out. It's called National Treasure 2. And so there's two things they specifically cite as when John Spencer is telling William Forsythe why Sean Connery's character is so dangerous and why he can never be let go. It's he knows who really shot JFK, and he knows what really happened at Roswell. He says the alien landing at Roswell, which every time I see this movie, that's the one time I get pulled out of it, because I'm like, wait a second. As soon as you're in a movie and you make reference to the fact that there's actual alien contact that's been made, why isn't the movie about that?
Well, because then you have the sequel where they have to break into a spaceship, an impenetrable spaceship.
Which, by the way, the movie does end with Nicolas Cage and Vanessa Marcel. They're like cosplaying, Raising Arizona, breaking into the church where Sean Connery hid the microfiche.
Yep.
And so they had considered doing a sequel, which is all about the government now hunting them down for that microfiche, and they had to turn to Sean Connery's character for help.
If that came out in the summer of 1998, I would have been there first weekend. Not going to lie. Not going to lie.
How? Because I'm the goddamn president of the United States of America.
Before we meet the president, they do make reference to him a couple times. There's one moment at the 58-minute mark where someone says, "We spoke to the president, and you're all well aware of his stance on terrorism."
Against would be my guess.
And so, this president.
He is a patrician man, definitely sort of more George Herbert Walker Bush in how he presents himself. Doesn't seem like a guy who ever served in combat. To me, seems like a governor of some sort. He respects the systems. He respects the military. But ultimately, because he's never been in the shit, he's a little takes his time to make these hard decisions.
Yeah. And who does he trust to be his most trusted confidant, advisor, his chief of staff? Well, we don't really get to meet that guy that much, but we do get to find out that the chief of staff is only 33 years old. That does come up in one of the war room scenes.
Which isn't crazy. Jimmy Carter had a very young chief of staff.
So he's got a young chief of staff. We don't really get to meet too many other people. Like, clearly, the FBI director is maybe someone he appointed. It also could be someone he inherited. It sounds like John Spencer's been in the government a lot longer than maybe even this president has.
Yes, Spencer doesn't seem especially loyal to anybody. It's more of like chain of command and doing the job.
Yeah, at no point is it left up to the president what to do with John Mason. The president might not even know that John Mason, what he did, what he has evidence of.
Well, he probably hasn't found any of the clues in his desk.
Yeah, in the Resolute desk, where obviously you hide all the clues to the greatest government secrets that the presidents should maybe know about or not. He's the moral center of the movie, this president. What really struck me about the inclusion of the scene at all, because it is extraneous, is this is 1996, throughout the 80s and the early 90s. What was most striking about action movies to me is how frequently the chain of command would stop at the mayor, stop at, and Die Hard with a Vengeance. It's like John McClane's precinct captain who seems to be feeling the brunt of all these terrorist attacks in the city. And so to actually go up to the White House, it was a bit of verisimilitude that worked for me.
But at the same time, if these soldiers had just taken 81 people hostage and there didn't involve a weapon of mass destruction, a gas that could, kill up to 1 million people, melt their faces off, yada, yada, yada. If it was just soldiers taking hostages, demanding money, does it go to the president? Maybe not. Maybe not. I mean, I just read this book called American Caliph, which was about a hostage situation in D.C. in the late 70s. And Jimmy Carter was like, I think the police have it. And about 100 people were taken hostage that day in 3 different locations. And Jimmy Carter was like, I'm going to take care of my business down the block here. You guys figure it out.
That's what's interesting is the president is activated in a way that seems credible. And so I appreciated that. You might not have needed the fake president, but going there at the time that they did, even though it's after the American president, it's after Dave, it's after, Pelican Brief, it's after so many of the movies we've covered where you already have Oval Office scenes, it didn't feel perfunctory. It's not like they include the president just because they felt we have to do it over, make it feel serious. No, they didn't have to do it. They did it because the call legitimately would have gone to the president.
Yeah.
And so they did not rob us of that moment.
No, and then what do you think happens when news breaks about the magnitude of what could have happened on this day? How do you think that affects the president's poll numbers?
How does the news cover it? So we know that there was a hostage situation. We know that it was disgruntled soldiers who were getting attention. I assume it would still get attention for their cause.
Arguably the most well-known and decorated soldier in America. This is if Norman Schwarzkopf or Colin Powell led something like this.
In many ways, it is a success because the 81 hostages are alive, and San Francisco has not had this VX poison gas unleashed upon its citizens. But that said, it's going to expose some dirty secrets. I'm not talking about the ones in the microfiche. I mean, the ones involving Hummel's primary motive. And so that will have to be discussed. So the question is, was he newly elected in, say, 96? Or was he 92? Was he around in 88? Did Desert Storm happen on his watch?
Great questions. I can't even, it's hard to really tell. I mean, I think this president is going to get nailed on both sides because he doesn't make any decisions fast enough. He was leading he was in charge of a situation where, the terrorists were homegrown. Bad luck. Not only were they homegrown, they were grown in the military. Even worse. The weapons of mass destruction were stolen on his watch. I think when they find out that the night that they were stolen, they were taken from a place where it was kept in a place called Naval Weapons Depot, a big sign that said Naval Weapons Depot. I think that's a bad look. I don't think you should advertise even on a base where all the weapons are kept with a big sign that said...
It should have just said IRS.
Yeah. It could say NWD. It doesn't have to say anything. Yeah. Why do you need a sign that says this is where we keep the weapons? Bad call. I think that'll change. I think there's going to be a lot of changes in this U.S. government, and I think one of the big changes is all the signs that specifically say where weapons are kept on military bases.
Yeah,
they're going to take those signs down.
Back to what little we can decipher of politics. I don't think he's military. I think if the president was military, that would have come up. Hummel would have been like, I know this guy. I know this guy. He's military trained. I know what his response will be to a certain degree. He definitely has executive written all over him. He's very pensive. He ruminates a lot. I mean, when he says it's the toughest decision he's ever had to make, I mean, obviously, there are a few tougher decisions to be made, which leads me to believe maybe he wasn't in office then during the Gulf War, because that would have been a pretty big decision to make there too. So he's inheriting someone else's mess. And the fact that I don't think he was a high-ranking military person before running for office, I think he can escape pretty clean from the baggage of the treatment of the soldiers.
And Hummel doesn't take any swipes at him.
No.
It's more about the government and the system as opposed to individuals.
Yeah. At no point does Hummel say that draft dodger, who does he think he is?
But because there wasn't like an actual attack, there's nothing to rally around for the people of the United States. So there's only blame.
That's ultimately what's going to doom him, is the fact that it's going to come out in the news that there were 12 rockets armed with poisoned gel balls, bath bombs, and aimed at the greater San Francisco, Oakland area. And at no point did anyone say the words, maybe we should evacuate.
Yeah.
Why don't we move people out? And I can see logistically how that could be an issue. But that said, the debate never really happens. And you never see the president even saying that I think that's what I should want to do. And so I do think the people of San Francisco specifically would be like, wait a second, we should have been told this. We should not have been kept in the dark. You know, you were playing with our lives.
Well,
so
the guy might be a Republican then. He's like, these guys aren't going to vote for me anyway. So let the evil Tide Pods take him out.
My name is Andrew Shepard, and I am the president.
So what do we think this movie says about 1996? I think we've kind of covered
that. I think it says about 1996 what it could say about the United States at any point in time over the past almost 100 years is that we don't take care of our military. The politics of it all is that they're used to advance certain agendas, and when their use is up, they're tossed aside and forgotten. And there are people here who won't tolerate it, and this is obviously an extreme version of not tolerating.
Yeah.
But we need to do a better job of looking after our own.
No, you say it very nicely. You said so well. I'm going to jump ahead a few years because this movie did play a role in the second Gulf War. Did you read about this? Did you see this come up in any of your research?
No.
Okay. So you talk about governments doing wrongs, especially when it comes to weapons of mass destruction.
Yeah.
So apparently, while Colin Powell was being sent to the UN to make the U.S. government's case for invading of Iraq based on somewhat specious, intel involving WMDs, is the reason why Great Britain signed on so quickly. It's because they were doing their own intel gathering. And they had a source on the ground who had first-hand knowledge of the chemical weapons being stored in Iraq. And the person described those chemical weapons as being little green balls. And it later came out that this person had no first-hand knowledge. He was just quoting what he'd seen in The Rock.
Motherfucker, I'm not asking if you're interested. I'm the president of the United fucking States, man.
That takes us to approval ratings and legacy.
I mean, the president's approval ratings, they drop pretty low after this. I mean, can you trust this dude? I mean, yes, it did all work out in the end, but not because of anything that he did. The president's approval has to dip down under 40. I think if there's enough time left in his administration for a second term, there's a shot. A lot could happen in 2 years. I think that's something that Clinton learned, that Bush learned, like the first Bush learned the opposite of, that a lot of bad could happen if you have a good first 2 years. Second 2 years could negate all of that. the man still has a shot, but not looking too impressive to me.
Except we do know he's still president in 1998.
We don't know if it's the same president.
Come on, we know the aliens landed in this movie. What if the whole
that is
asteroid thing in Armageddon was sent by the aliens? They're like,
we'll check. We'll have to watch Armageddon to see if there's any little Easter eggs. If he has like a picture of Alcatraz on his desk.
So legacy, and I'm going to assume that he's a first termer, came in 92, inherited, all the Hummel's rage, basically. Hummel's not raging at him because he was not in office, during the Gulf War.
Yeah.
I'm going to assume he's a first termer. I'm going to assume that this guy's a great speech. I'm not going to assume that he's a great speech giver.
Well, we don't know what he's like in front of actual people. That's him just riffing in the office. He could have stage fright for all we know.
He knows the Nixon tape recorders are still going.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think that if his 33-year-old Stephen Miller, chief of staff, is as shrewd and evil and conniving as I'm going to assume the guy is, he's going to make sure that the first person to speak to the public about this is the president himself. He controls the narrative. He beats the local news outlets to the punch while they're still saying, was that a gas leak on Alcatraz? Well, there's something happened there. He's the one to come and say, here's what happened. Here's the decisions that I had to make. Here's how we walked away with everybody alive except for the bad guys.
Yeah.
And not only that, but I will make sure that nothing like this ever happens again because we will treat our veterans fair. The ills, the sins of my predecessors are not the sins of me. This is a new America. This is a new Stanley Anderson, President Stanley Anderson. So if you reelect me in November of 1996, I promise you this will never happen again until the asteroid comes.
Until you look up to the sky and you say, wait,
look,
is that a big rock?
Yeah. That movie could have been called The Rock too.
So that was The Rock. The Rock. The Rock.
That was The Rock.
Well, that's been Fake Presidents. I've been Ben Oren.
I've been Eric Buckman.
Theme music by Johnny Sadoff. Artwork by Ann Hecker.
Technically, you can find us on Twitter, but don't. We're okay.
We're not paying, guys. We're not going to pay the $11.
No.
So if there's a fake, look, there might be a fake president's account that might approach you, asking for money, asking for photos, like intimate photos. Do not share intimate photos with any fake president's accounts. Don't even share them with us.
Yeah.
Okay? We don't need that.
Yeah. Even if they have the little blue check mark.
Even if the blue check mark, don't do it. Respect your body. Unless you're going to get paid for it. Then you know what? We support sex workers.
Yeah. The real fake presidents is fake_presidents. Accept no substitutes.
Except no substitutes. We will never ask you for intimate picture.
The best way to reach us, though, is email fakepresidents, no underscore, no spaces, just fakepresidents @gmail.com. We will check it. We will read it. We'll do a mailbag episode. We will make sure that you get the clout that you need to tell your spouse that all the hours you've spent listening to this podcast have not been in vain. We will validate you.
Yeah. Bye.
Stanley Anderson. He's a good actor. When I first saw him in this movie, I didn't realize I'd seen him in so many other movies. As soon as I looked at his film credits, I'm like, wait, he was in Spider-Man? He was a general telling Willem Dafoe that his technology sucks? Like, he's in a lot of movies.
Yeah. Working actor.
Also, dead now.
Also dead.
Not working anymore.
He's working. He's back with Sean and John.
Yeah.
They're running lines upstairs in the clouds. Know what I'm saying?
Wait, which John?
John Spencer.
Oh, okay. I was like, John C. McGinley's still alive, Ben.
Well, I don't know when this podcast is going to come out. We need to be prepared for everything. Guys, typically when we talk about people who are dead, it's like, you know how the New York Times has a lot of obituaries like ready to go? Ahead of time. We do the same thing with any of our bits about dead people and dead actors. We don't know who's going to die. So we come up with like we have a version of this where Nick Cage is dead. We have a version of this where Vanessa Marcel is dead. We have a version of this where Anthony Clark is dead.
We have a version where Sean Connery is no longer dead.
No. Yeah, we're prepared for the zombie apocalypse also. Yeah. So we have a version where John Spencer, Sean Connery are back, doing their thing, but
we gotta be prepared.
Eating brains.
We record so far in advance.
Yeah,
we record so far in advance, we have to be prepared for all possible outcomes. We don't know who is going to be alive or dead or back from the dead as we finally release these episodes.